was important that we pause and think about those who are on the ground. Think about the grassroots organizers, leaders in our local communities, who you don't often hear names called, but nevertheless, they are doing the work. And so I invited Miss Kenya D. Brown on to be my guest tonight because I found what she did on behalf of a family who had a very unexpected loss of their 1 year old child and grandchild to gun violence during the 4th of July weekend. And what Kenya did was incredible to me. And it's one of those cold things that we in the Black community can do. We don't always have to be in front of a camera. We can do things behind the scenes that really make an incredible difference to those who are bereaved. And so I want to invite her on. Kenya, welcome to Black Talk Platform. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank
Are
you
you able?
so much for having me. I'm so sorry about the sun. It's just permeating. So forgive that. But thank you so much for this platform and for asking me to be on. I'm really, I flattered is the word.
You don't have to be flattered. I admire what you've done, and I'm happy that you accepted the invitation to be here. Don't worry about the sun. You look beautiful. We can see you and we can hear you.
That's, oh,
So,
that's very
Ken,
sweet. Thank you.
okay.
So,
So Kenya and I, we are working on a project in another realm, but we all do things individually. And one of the individual things that Kenya did, moved by her heart to do, was to help a family um, after they lost a child. So Kenya, would you tell us the backstory? I think many people, at least in New York, they've heard about this tragedy, but they don't really know all the inner workings. So why don't you tell us about it and how you came to get involved?
yes, certainly. As many of, I'm sure your followers and people that you work with know, we've been dealing with a lot of, it seems like an extreme case of gun violence in New York City. Obviously, it's something that we deal with often, and usually from summer to summer, they say there's a saying where they say, the block is hot, or, it's going to be a hot summer. And oftentimes that means that, we will see these examples of gun violence, but it seems this summer it's just been extreme, and it's clearly around many of the issues that are going on. So unfortunately, about, I want to say, a week and one half ago, um, as many of us, we're not sleeping well. Many of us with the pandemic and our schedules, we're just not sleeping well. So I have not been sleeping well. And I was up at about 4 a.m. and I saw a post from a friend that stated they killed and I'm paraphrasing, but it says they killed my grandson. They killed my grandson. When is it going to stop? Something to that effect. And I'm saying to myself, well, I know she only has one grandchild, and I know this grandchild was born recently, because as we do on Facebook and social media, we celebrate each other. We celebrate our children graduating. We celebrate children being born. We celebrate people getting married. Unfortunately, during COVID, we experienced funerals on social media. So when the baby was born, I was aware of it. It was something we all celebrated with her through social media and various outlets. So I knew that she was speaking of her 1-year-old grandson, who would have been 2 in September. And I felt a great sense of sadness. I felt a deep grief. I felt shocked. I had not ever, never known anyone that lost a baby to gun violence. I myself have lost a child, but he was sick, and it was an experience in that way, but not to gun violence. So I just was really in shock, and I just could not sleep. But eventually, of course, I had to go to sleep, and I did. So when I woke up maybe 4 hours later, of course, it was all over social media. And this was very real. Not that I thought that I was in a dream, but here it is. This is happening. And at 4 in the morning, there's no one to talk to. There is no one to reach out to. I couldn't reach out to her. So I just had to sit with that until I woke up. And when I woke up, I felt this great sense, this urge to do something. What can I do? What can I do for this grieving grandmother? What can I do for this family um, to help them? Because they're going to need now and will continue to need all of the support that we as a community can give. The only thing that I felt that I could do in that moment was to put together the GoFundMe campaign. I had been working on a campaign previously where I was doing grocery deliveries to elderly people. So I already had some stuff set up. So I just immediately went in, set up the campaign, put in the information that I knew, and started sharing it. I made it clear that it was not something that the family was even aware of or even asked me to do. But again, maybe 2 years now, we lost a us emotionally, financially, spiritually, that really helped us through that. So that's what I was thinking in my mind. What can we do to help this family? And of course, the spiritual support, prayers and all that stuff is most important, the physical support, but people need resources,
Right.
and we know how disenfranchised our communities are, how underserved our communities are, and how the barriers sometimes to getting the things that we need is just simply around the fact that we don't have the financial resources that we need. So I put it together, put it up, and then it took off. We had a request of $10,000, and now it is almost up to $30,000. And I just was like really happy and surprised to see people respond. But I kind of expected people to respond in that way because it pulls at America's heartstrings, something like this. So that's kind of the backstory as to how I got the GoFundMe together, and then how I know the family. Ironically, is the grandmother does events in the community, and one of the events that she does, it's around Marcy Projects, and it's called Cool to Be a Kid, I believe it is, and it's ran by a gentleman from Marcy Projects, but she supports it, and I have supported them through fundraising. Just showing up to a fundraiser that they had, giving my dollars to support what they were doing in the community, because how awesome that someone from the community is doing what they can for the community.
Right.
And so, ironically, that is how she and I became friends, through fundraising. That is how we developed the relationship. And from that time, a week and a half ago to date, I've just been on the phone with her off and on and just trying to provide whatever support that I can.
That is incredible, Kenya.
Thank you.
And I want to just highlight a couple of the things you said. So you're up at 4 a.m. in the morning. You see this horrible, horrible post stating that they killed my grandchild, and horrible. Well, everyone, just in case you don't know, this happened in Brooklyn during the 4th of July holiday, and this baby, who's just 1 year old, was murdered. We're gonna call it what it is. Was murdered. Um, and this family, I don't know if I can share here some. Well, I won't share what Kenya and I have spoken about because this is really raw for this family. In fact, the NYPD is having a town hall at the site, even as we speak, or just a little while ago, because that's how much it has gripped our community. I live in the Bronx. She lives in Brooklyn. That happened in Brooklyn, but guess what? We're all one. And everyone's hearts are broken. His name was Duval Gardner Jr. And I think that we get away from his Gardner Jr. We become desensitized because we don't put names to the tragedy. And I want us to know this baby, he had his life ahead of him. This family had so many aspirations and hopes for him, just like we all do. But Kenya did something different than what we are accustomed to seeing done in terms of the justice movement. Typically, when things of this nature happens, we will see every news outlet, we will see the so-called activists come out and politicians. And I don't mean to disparage truly social activists or community leaders. There are some who are equivalent to ambulance chasers, and then there are those who are actually doing the work. Kenya is one of those
Yes.
who's doing the work, in my opinion.
Yes.
As she stated, her initial
Wow.
GoFundMe um, goal was $10,000. Correct me on the timeline if I'm wrong. Within a day and a half or 48 hours, they had exceeded the $10,000. As of now, it is close to
We doubled it.
$40,000.
And
Go
mhm.
ahead. Go ahead, Kenya.
We doubled it in about 24 hours.
Did you all
We
hear that?
doubled it in about 24 hours.
They doubled
20,
it.
40, 40. And one thing I want to add, I have no
Control.
the grandmother has been made the beneficiary. So every single dollar down to every single penny is in the possession of the family. I have not, there's, it's not like something that I'm getting from it, other than to see them well. But that's also a little different, is that in that I did it and I handed it over to them.
Yes. So, and that is another reason why I was impressed with her, with you, because that's a lot of money. And we see so much fraud occurring during these times of great grief. A young lady was killed a couple of weeks ago also in California. I mean, she was brutalized, and her family, in the middle of their bereavement, someone cloned the sister's page and set up a GoFundMe page, um, falsely, fraudulently for this child. And so that money that was going, should be going rightfully to the family, actually went to someone who was out to be bad. And so Kenya told me right away that she turned this over to the grandmother. The grandmother is in charge of this, and they're nearing $30,000. So the GoFundMe campaign is still open. If there are any of you who'd like to donate to it, I'm going to share with you Kenya's name, how you can find her on Facebook, because she has the link to the GoFundMe campaign on her page. Please consider contributing, because there is much ahead of this family for them to pay out, to live, to honor his memory. And so I just thank you so much for that. This is a part of the code of the community that
Thank
we
you.
have to develop. I'm always talking about being on code, and I think Kenya, you have given us one of the elements of being on code in our community. How many people think that they have to bury a 1-year-old? So even though many of us do the verbalizing, this is still an unexpected expense. This is still not an expectation that you have to incur these types of expenses. So while Gerber may be relevant in some lives, it may not be in others. And so I just thank you on behalf of the community. I truly thank you, because I think this is super
Can I
critical.
make a point?
Yes,
Can I make a point?
yes.
The grandmother actually the grandmother had was proactive and actually had a plan for the baby. Unfortunately, the plan that she has does not kick in until the baby turned 2, and the baby is 2 months, 2 to 3 months shy of that.
Wow.
I and this may be a little off topic, and you can bring me back,
It's okay.
put me back in line if so. I One of the things that I really would like to see in our community is for people to understand the power of crowdfunding, the power of GoFundMe, the power of our abilities to put our monies together to support each other. For us not to look down on that option, for us not to look sideways at each other because of that option. Because if we pull together in the right ways, we could use this option to really strengthen and undergird and rebuild our communities. We could help people open businesses. We could help people go to college. We could help people bury loved ones. We could help people really change the trajectory of their lives if we would look at these abilities to crowdfund in a little bit of a different way. It's not begging. That's why I made it very clear. The family did not ask me to do this. And this wasn't necessarily around a funeral. Because one thing, me having buried my own child at 19 years old, everybody gave me money. Everybody came together and supported me. Even Dr. Jeffrey Gardia, who is now America's doctor, who was my therapist and got me through that time, paid out of his pocket to put a tombstone on my baby's grave.
Wow.
So the money part of it is not, I knew that people were going to come together to support them financially in terms of the funeral. But there are other things that come along with this type of loss, like what you were saying. And so I wanted them to have the flexibility, even down to buying the suit that they may need, or the clothes that they may need, or, just if they need a family member to come in, or the food that they may need. I didn't want, in addition to their grief, for them to have those financial barriers of sending their baby off in the way that they could be pleased with.
Right.
So I would like, for people to look at these options in a little bit of a different way, in a way that we can support each other and come together, because it does take dollars.
Sure.
It takes money. And I don't, if I give $5, if I give $20, if I give $100, I always give what I can, because I know that it takes money to make these things work and to make these things happen.
Thank you. No, that was definitely not off topic or out of line. We need to know what works for us. There's so many things that we try here and that, but you have proven, not only with this, I want to go rewind a little bit. At the beginning of COVID, you and I talked. At the beginning of COVID, when you sort of promoted a little bit here, you saw that it was going to have an adverse effect on the senior citizen community. And you began fundraising to be able to feed our seniors.
Yes.
Come on, tell us a little bit about that tenure. It's clear that you have a heart.
You know what? Let me say this to you, Dr. G. Everything. I'm a believer. Everything that comes on my heart, I believe it is from God. Everything that is good, and I understand we're in a climate that turns people off, but I have to speak the truth. And speaking in this way is truth to power for me. So the things that come in my mind and that are on my heart, I believe is really the concern that God has for the people. And I'm saying this for a reason, because I have a difficult time sometimes accepting, even though I know it's me, my physical body, I have a hard time sometimes accepting the appreciation of it, because I believe, if God doesn't move us, God is good, and everything that is good comes from him. So anything that we do for each other in love, anything that we do for each other in kindness and compassion and in concern, is really the heart of God for the people. He just uses us, because for those that believe that he exists, obviously it's not in our physical form, so he uses the physicality of the human, but moves the heart, moves the mind, gives the ideas, gives the impressions of what is needed in society. Because he said, what you do unto the least of these, you do unto me. So clearly we are to take care of each other. So when COVID hit, my son got stuck with his dad, who had COVID. So my son got stuck there, and he obviously couldn't leave. And so I was working to get groceries delivered to him. And it was so difficult, because everybody was using the same apps and and had the same idea, and we were just having a difficult time. And I think it was like a week and a half that he would receive groceries. So I said to myself, if this is so difficult for us, who we don't have these, barriers in terms of using technology and even having to go outside if we need to, how much more difficult would it be for an elderly person who is at the height of COVID in New York City, who was the most vulnerable?
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe God moved my heart to start a GoFundMe to receive donations, and every dime, we got almost 2,000. I put 1,000 initially, and then when we went over 1,000, I increased it to 10,000. But we did reach almost 2,000 because people's attention spans are like this too. Fair, and that's okay. That's fine. But you got to get it while it's hot, so to speak. So we did get about 2,000. But let me tell you something. With $2,000, we were able to take care of about 15 households. And I mean, Health and Whole Foods, ironically, was the only app that I was actually able to use to get delivery same day.
Wow.
And each household was somewhere from $60 to $75, and in some cases more, because in some cases we had people who were as far as Roswell, Georgia, who were in very rural towns that it cost us a bit more to get deliveries and get food out to them. But we didn't close it just to New York. It was to any elderly person in New York City that needed groceries. I can announce here today that we still have $400 in the coffers for any elderly person that still to date needs groceries. And we have a list of 14 items, of essential items that include fruit and water and juice and meat and eggs and bread. I mean, all the good stuff, not powdered soup and chips. And they can have the chips, they can have snacks. But I mean, I know at first some of the New York City deliveries were just like a bag of powdered soup and some potato chips. Like, this is nutritional food that will maybe last about 2 weeks. But today we still have monies available that has not been used. If you or anyone on this line reaches out to you and says, you know what, Doc, I need and they don't necessarily have to be elderly, because we started extending it to single moms,
Nice.
or anyone who had COVID. I'm in an unemployment group, and those people, we were sending groceries to people in that group. So at this point, again, if anyone reaches out to you and
Okay.
there is a need, we still have resources available to help them.
That's awesome. I'm going to share with them something because I really want to drive home your integrity. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about this, oh my goodness, probably like in May. We
Right.
talked about this in May. Kenya told me in May, Doc, if you have anyone, let me know. And I had shared it with my church family and everything, but we never really got it done. She's had this money for a
Right.
while. She's not
Right.
using it for herself. She,
Yeah.
so if you have,
No.
if
No,
you
I can't.
need someone
I
to
can't.
model yourself after in terms of helping others, listen to this young lady because she's actually walking the walk. She has, I said, we talked in late May about this, and she still had money. And she's now telling you she has money. Don't not reach out to me or
Yeah.
her if you are in need, because there's absolutely no
Right.
reason for anyone to be free
Right.
when she has the resources available. Okay. So, Kenya, thank you so much.
Yep.
We're going to transition a little bit. Let's talk about some other things right now. Is that good? You're good for that? Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
So
Yes. Yes. Yes.
we have a slight delay between my talking and Kenya, but just stick with us. I want to thank all the audience for being here, both
Okay.
YouTube and Facebook. Thank you all so much because the support that I receive on this platform is just incredible. I think I also started it in May, and every topic emphasizes something that we need in the Black community. We've done a lot of faith talk. Tonight is the justice talk. And we're talking specifically about Black women of the movement for social justice. We started out with Kenya because I don't want people who do extraordinary things and things that are unusual to be discounted and overlooked. And so I do believe that Kenya is one of those sisters that you need to know about and understand that the way she does it is highly effective. And wherever you are in the country or in the world, you can replicate these types of efforts. It's not always being out in front. We have to all learn how to play the back sometimes. Even those of us who are used to being out in the front, we have to learn how to let other people come forward, do what they do, and we do things in the background. And so what I did today is I promote this a little differently than I usually do, Kenya. I put a request out for questions before we started. And let me see if I can pull up the one that we did receive so we can talk about that. Okay, before we really get into it. And there's several questions, and this comes from my actual sister, Juanita Presley. She says, what are the major issues that women are currently fighting against? That's one question. And then she says, I'm aware of the fights against sex trafficking, but don't know who is doing what. Great question, because there are a lot of people doing this work. And I have some on my list, and Kenya may have some to add. I'm aware of the fight to end all of the senseless killings of our children and mass incarceration against Black and brown men in particular. However, Pastor Deb, locally, other than you and Tamika Mallory, she's talking about me because she knows what I do. Who are the ones leading the way that we should all know about? How do everyday people, women like herself, get involved? So those are a lot of questions, Kenya. We'll do our best to answer them all. What I have put as a part of the promotion for tonight is that Black women have historically led both well organized and grassroots movements for social justice. We've been out front on behalf of our men, and we have fought hard to keep the names of our sisters in the public sphere. But sometimes we're not appreciated, sometimes we're overlooked, and it's not so that we can be seen, but everybody, I don't care how much work you do, at the end of the day, you really don't mind having someone say thank you for all that you've done. And so I'm going to start again with my sister Kenya. Thank you for all that you've done to help this family through this very difficult time. But let's see if we can unpack some of these questions Juanita asked. I would like, do you mind if I don't know if you and I talked about this, because Kenya and I, we do some work together, and all of this social justice work, I need for you all to know, those of you who are not really actively doing it, and we understand everybody can't. Some are called to it. I really feel called to it. Kenya feels called to it. And many of the names that you'll hear tonight, they also feel called to it. But it's exhausting work. It's thankless work. But ever now and again, there will come a time when one of the subject matters of our justice work can become so overwhelming that it causes us to sort of physically and emotionally shut down. That happened for me several weeks ago in June. I don't know how many of you remember the story out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There were two teenage Black girls, 15 and 13, who had gone missing. And the parents, the mother went to the police department, and they did not take it seriously. They did not look for these girls. And the community had repeatedly told law enforcement that where they believed these girls were in a known sex trafficking community, like houses that really sort of stole children and got them into sex trafficking. But the cops took it lightly. That thing hurt me so badly. Milwaukee has a whole host of issues, but for these young women's lives, young girls, I'm sorry, 13 and 15, they're young girls, to be dismissed by those who have sworn to serve and protect, it broke my heart. But what made my heart leap for joy was the fact that these mothers, these families went through the community themselves looking for these ladies, for these babies, and they found them. And it was indeed in a house where they did sex trafficking, human sex trafficking. And the house ended up being burnt down. And immediately the police chief tried to come out and redact the story. But the truth had already come out from the community. Why, as Black women, do we have to go out and find our own children? Don't get me wrong, we're going to always look for our children. But to have our children, especially young women, young girls, disregarded by law enforcement, it broke my heart. And so it just sort of, it made me have to take a step back for about a week. And Kenya and I, we might have had different reasons, but we both sort of moved back from all the work because it was a lot going on. Kenya, do you remember that?
I absolutely remember it. I was astounded at how the men of the community and the women of the community, and like you said, the families came together and they found them girls, and then they burned the house down.
Yeah, yeah.
They
Look.
burned the big burn thing is maybe I want to say 3 years ago. I want to say 3 years ago, a story came out about two young men who were talking about their experience being molested. They're men now, adult men now, but they were molested as young boys, as young as maybe 10, starting at maybe starting about 12, going maybe lasting till about 15, 16. I don't know the exact numbers. They were allegedly molested by Africa Bambaataa.
Oh, yes,
When
yes.
this happened, when this story came out, I supported the two young men that told their story. We had a press conference, or I attended a press conference with, Black media and Black community around it. They called for African Bambaataa to come and, you know, talk about it. Like, why is this being said? Of course, he did not come. Instead, he went to Lisa Evers on Fox News because Lisa Evers is his friend from when she was a cop on the beat.
Mm-hmm.
This is not something that it's a profound story. There's a lot of evidence around whether this happened or not, but at this point, it's alleged.
Right.
What I found, the reason I'm telling this story is what I found in that time, putting together petitions to get Cornell University to take African Bambaataa's music out of its library, putting together petitions to get people to get an investigation. One of the young men who was molested is a part of the reason why New York State passed the statute of limitation, where they lifted it for child molestation, so you can come back 30 years later and you can sue someone who molested you. So
Ooh, Kenya stuck. I really want to hear the rest of that story. Okay, so
I
Kenya.
noticed in that time that it fell on. Okay, sorry, I'm back. Nothing that I'm driving, so I'm sorry about that. Nothing happened to African Bambaataa. He went under society. I don't know where he is, what's going on with him, but it was really nothing. It was like rumblings, and it was really nothing. Nothing happened. And so what I saw and I found and what disheartened me in that time is I realized people don't care. It doesn't seem that when it comes to young Black boys and young Black girls, that people have much concern around child molestation, around sex trafficking, around sexual exploitation of children. And I'm not going to say broadly that people don't care, but I mean in a macro way. I think in the micro, in the community, yes, but in a macro way, you're not going to see it on Channel 7 News,
Right.
And so then we double back around to the story, and what you said was Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
We have the same thing. The police are showing apathy. The the judge or whomever, local enforcements are showing apathy towards what is happening to young black girls and boys. And so the community decides, then you know what? We'll handle it. We'll
Yeah.
take it into our own hands.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of us get thrust. Yes, we are called, but a lot of us get thrust into these types of work because we see the need, we
Yeah.
see the gap, we see the space. And we decide, many of us have decided as younger people, that we have to stand somewhere in that gap for the liberation of our people,
Absolutely.
and eventually we find what that space is.
Yeah.
We find what that space is.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I tell you, you're right. Some are called, many are called. We recognize that call, but others
Yeah.
are sort of thrust into it because of the moment, and that's also powerful and also necessary. Um, to speak about one other person, I don't only listen to my own platform. I don't only go on the platforms that you and I share, and
Right.
others. I like to find out what others are doing. And so last night, I went on the National Action Network's Youth Huddle. I believe we have a responsibility to our young people to prepare the way, you know, uh, from your example, for instance, some young person is going to come behind you and take it to the next level because they have a different way with using social media. But the time is right for them to take the lead, and whatever role we can play in supporting them and their growth and opportunities, we should do it. So I got on last night. Actually, I had been on with my city councilman, Andy King. He does town halls every Monday at 3 p.m. and I was a guest. But there was this young lady. So we're about to start the shout outs, everybody. I want you to write these names down because these people you need to know. These are Black, young, and older women. And I say older because when I tell you her age, you'll see the difference between myself, Kenya, and her. These are Black women doing it. We are doing it out here. And I would be remiss if I did not share who they are. Um, so I'm listening to this young lady on with Councilman King yesterday, and I'm just blown away. She's only 18, and she's one of the youth leaders at the National Action Network. And the way she speaks, she knows she's a queen. Kenya, I don't remember knowing that I was a queen at 18. I mean, I know that this is royalty, right? But I wasn't walking around. And we had Queen Latifah to tell us, right? We had her to tell us, but the way it rolled off of this young lady's mouth, off her tongue, kings and queens. Someone has taught her so well who she is. I was so impressed. And the others around her. Her name is Malaysia Freeman. You all write that down. Her name is Malaysia Freeman. And if you want to go and listen to the Youth Huddle at the National Action Network, it should still be up on their page. But the way she conducted the meeting, asking her questions, I'm just so impressed with her. Now, during the time with Councilman King, his co host was Miss Ashley Sharpton, also another name I am shouting out tonight. Yes, she is the daughter of the Rev Al Sharpton. And her mother, I believe, his name is Kathy. I always try to give props to everybody I know, at least by name. But the work that she's doing with these young people at the National Action Network should not be discounted or overlooked. I think that they are onto something at the National Action Network in terms of youth. But she talked about yesterday, Ashley mentioned the difference between the outpouring of outrage and support that males get as opposed to black women. A few weeks ago, towards the end of June, Tiana Johnson, 19 years old, having just graduated from Monroe College, was out with some of her friends at a neighborhood park celebrating her graduation when gunfire rang out and she was murdered. There was a press conference held there, but according to Miss Sharpton. Basically, she's all but been forgotten, except for those who cared for and loved her, as opposed to dear Brandon Hendricks, who was also murdered senselessly. 17 years old, had just graduated high school. What's going on with this difference being made? Um, that also this. Do you have any feedback on that? Do you have any thoughts about that, Kenya?
You know what I can say? I'll tell you this. It's interesting. This young lady, Miss Freeman. I'm gonna look her up. I definitely want to
I'm gonna put her
follow
name.
her. I'm the
You're
one
freezing up again.
breaking up. I was breaking up. Sorry,
That's
guys.
okay. Okay. So I'm not
We're
hearing Kenya.
coming through
Okay, she's
the
she may be in a tunnel, everyone. Okay, so the last thing I heard Kenya say is that she's going to look up Malaysia Freeman. I advise all of you just check her out. She is dynamic. Oh, you're back. Okay, go.
I want to say this quickly. I would definitely, yes, I'm going to look her up. I want to follow her because I do feel in my career, baby boomers stood in my way. When I was very young
Mhm.
and very on fire and very ambitious, they were not willing to pass the baton.
Right.
And as a result, there was a lot of damage done to community programs that I was working with that could have been powerful and effective to this day. But because you had these people who didn't want to give up the money, they didn't want to give up the status quo, they didn't want to give up their own sense of power and pass it on to the younger. So we understand that need for that. So I love that. When I was her age, I did not know I was a queen. I was angry. That's what I can remember 18, 19. I mean, yes, I told you guys I lost my child, but I was angry. I was angry about the conditions of Black people even then. The disparity, the financial disparities, it have been palpable forever between our communities and other communities. So I was angry, and I was so angry. I felt a sense of like not just revolution, but like I wanted us to fight. And I remember someone said to me, Kenya, the anger isn't going to change things. You've got to go inside and you've got to work hard to change it from within. And that was my focus from 18 until now. Now
Wow.
I understand, though, that we're on the outside of this breaking through. It's not inside anymore because you really can't change a system like this from the inside. You've got to come from the outside and break it down, bust it apart, you know. Um, but and then as far as with the women seem to be ignored and the men are the ones that we hear about. Also, in the same time in my life, I was working at the New York City Youth Line, which was founded by David Dinkins. I was a peer counselor,
Mhm.
and I remember sitting at the phones one night because we were essentially a suicide hotline. But I mean, we had other services, but we primarily focused on suicide. So I remember we were sitting at the phones waiting for calls to come in. And my coworker and I, very young, we were just talking about the conditions of Black folk. And I said to him, why are they doing all this stuff to Black men? Like, why are they doing all this stuff to Black men? He said, because Kenya, once they destroy us, you
Hmm.
guys won't matter. You guys won't matter. And that was said to me at about maybe 19, 20 years old. And it's never left me. It's never left me. So the Black woman seems to be forgotten, seems to be thrown to the side, seems to be disparaged because the Black man is so oppressed and so downtrodden. And at the point that they know that they destroy our men, what more do they have to do to us? So
Right.
if they're killing our young Black boys in the street and they're also killing our young Black girls, you hear about the young Black boys, you don't necessarily hear about the young Black girls, but it's almost like, what do they matter anyway? That's the message that's sent. But that message is sent even if they just killing our boys.
Yeah.
Because ultimately it's going to have an effect on our girls and on our, on our women. If that, excuse me, if that makes any sense.
It
I do
does.
hear, I know I got caught a not a, what was it, a protest. I got caught in a protest one night in May when the protest first broke out, and it was all, I went to get something to eat, and they just walked around my car, and they were just walking around my car, and they were yelling, Black Lives Matter. And I was like, gosh, I hope they don't do anything to my car, because I didn't know if, what was going on really. And then they started saying Breonna Taylor, and it was like hundreds of young white people, and they were just saying Breonna Taylor, and I was the only Black person, in sight. And then tears just started streaming down my face. If you guys can visualize what I'm talking about, just this image of this scene. And I do know that people are very concerned also about what is happening to our young Black, women. But for whatever reason, we're not hearing it as much. And then it's being used against us to say, you know what, nobody cares about Black women. Black men don't care about Black women. Black people don't care about Black women. And we know that that's not true.
Right. It's not true. It's not true. But I believe that we can play a role in definitely not allowing it to separate us, but definitely keeping their names out there. Tiana Johnson, Breonna Taylor. That it's just incredible to me that no one has been arrested. Even after hearing the other day that she was still alive 5 minutes and they didn't call for any assistance for her. Incredible, incredible. All right, so we're going to play our role in keeping their names out there, and I think that's our responsibility to do. And then when I say our, I think it's our collective responsibility. But we will not allow ourselves to be divided over the emphasis placed on a Black male versus the Black woman. We're going to make sure that the emphasis is on both, because any injustice to any Black bodies has to always be amplified by the community. So we are winding down. We have 13 minutes left, Kenya. I have some names that I want to shout out because they are doing the work like you and I on the ground. Um, First shout out because she made history today in the city of Mount Vernon, New York. This is a sister. This is a friend, Jean Lackard. She is the first deputy police commissioner for special initiatives. She is so dynamic. I've been connected with her for a few years because she is a leader in reentry justice and restorative justice. I couldn't be more proud of her. For those of you who don't know, Mount Vernon also has a Black woman for mayor, and she saw in Jen something that we all see in Jen. Jen has been out there walking the walk and talking the talk. So I want to shout out Jen Lackard because she is trying her hardest to make the lives of those returning citizens much more rich, and I'm very proud of her. So look her up too, watch her. She's been doing incredible work around this issue of restorative justice and reentry justice. So that's one person, and today she was sworn in Mount Vernon. I'm also working with some other dynamic sisters, and jump in when you have somebody you want to put in there, Kenya. Well, here's one that Kenya and I share in a group that we are in together. She is a friend. I've been friends with her for many years, and I like to say that her type of street justice is through culinary arts. Her name is Chef Danielle Moore. She is a fighter for the justice of Black people. And she has a podcast of her own called, I'm going to get it wrong, Danielle. If you're out there, just type it in the box for me. But Talking chewing with your mouth full or something like that, where she prepares a meal for her guests and they discuss the issues concerning Black people, and strategize as to how we can go forward. So that's my friend Danielle Moore. She is an extraordinary baker and chef. So, and she will be opening up her own shop very soon as COVID is under control. So we want to shout out to her. Can you have anyone you want to jump in there? Let me while I put Jen's name in there.
Uh, well, there is a young woman. Her name is DeHaviland Ford. She's out of Texas, and she has an organization called 818 The Sign. And she also does a lot of work around racial healing, social justice, and definitely, I mean, something we may not have popular opinions on, or we may not always agree on, but she's definitely doing the work on behalf of the people. And she's the Haviland Ford, and you can definitely find her on Facebook as well.
De Haviland Ford, and you say she's out of Texas.
She's out of Texas, and she has an organization called 818 The Sign. And again, also they really focus on. There's a book called The Dream King, written by William Ford, and they really focus a lot on racial healing and just really trying to bridge gaps between communities, because we definitely have to gird ourselves up and do our own thing before we can probably start getting to that space. But we do still see there's a lot of support from a lot of other communities, and we definitely want to keep those allies. We want to develop and we want to keep those allies. So they work around a lot around social justice and racial healing.
Beautiful. Social justice and racial healing. I missed the understanding of the name of the organization. What is the name?
It's called 818, like so 818 The Sign.
The Sign.
The Sign, like THESIGN.
Okay. Okay, great. Awesome. I'm gonna put them in there in a minute. Um, who else did I said Danielle. I want to go on. All right, I'm working with another group of dynamic Black women. The first is Minister Only Love Alston. A lot of people know Only Love because she is a community activist in New York, and she works in all the boroughs. The one initiative that she has been a leader in has been the closing of Rikers Island. The closing of Rikers Island, which we're still trying to get closed. And she's just a powerful young lady who's doing a lot of great work also around criminal justice reform. So shout out to Only Love Alston. Another is Pastor Kaji Dosa. She is dynamic. She comes from a long line of civil rights activists, both male and female. But one thing that she has carved out as a niche, which may not be something that most of us want to be our niche, but she has embraced it as a calling, and it is fighting for the injustice of those who are at the border in cages. She has allowed herself to be put in the front line on the front lines in order to try to seek some justice. She has worked on some of the major legislation and even influenced the Supreme Court's current recent ruling regarding the children who are at the border. So she's another dynamic sister. I'm going to try to put all the names in the messages for you on the chat box. Another sister, Apostle Stacy Ramos. She's out of Harlem, New York. She does the boots on the ground work, and she may not have, and that's why I never judge anybody based on size, because the Bible tells us to never despise small beginnings, you know. And she is out there when many are not, fighting crime. I mean, she's out there fighting crime on the streets of Harlem, and she is out there. She is talking to the people that we don't want in our communities that are doing all these bad things, and she's out there just pushing for the community to come together. So that's Apostle Stacy Ramos. Here's one. that some of you may know, and she's a good friend too, just the sweetest soul. So after all of this social justice work is done, we need someone who will just speak to us as Black women, who will bring us together and have discussions around how you doing. How are you feeling? Are you holding up well under all of this? How are you balancing your personal life, the justice work, your employment, and all of this stuff? That is my sister friend Denise Best. Denise Best. And she has a wonderful program where she recognizes powerful sisters every year through the I Am Empowerment Award ceremony that she just recently hosted. And my sister was one of her awardees, but many others as well. And I'm a previous one, but she does that soul care. And she's not a minister, but she knows what we want. She knows what we need. And she provides that soul care to many sisters in the movement. Now, there are some here in my community. I'm not the only one who does work in Co-op City. There are other dynamic sisters, and I wanted to shout out two of them. Miss Leslie Peterson. Miss Leslie Peterson is a River Bay board director, but she's also the president of her building association. She exposes the young people in her building to brand new experiences. She is the catalyst for there being a double Dutch team in Co-op City, and they go down to the Apollo and they compete with the other teams, or they just watch and observe. But I'm emphasizing people who do work with young people because young people have to stay engaged. And Miss Peterson is one of those people who seeks out unusual ways to keep our young people on the track to excellence. And speaking about her, there is another River Bay board director. I don't think she's watching, but I'm going to shout her out because I watch how she works with young people and in the community to do the same thing. And her name is Leah Richardson. She works for the New York system. She has built programs around mock juries so that young people could become familiar with how the court system works, and a debate team, things of that nature that keep our children engaged, but also teach them the law. So these two young ladies in Co-op City, they are doing stupendous work as Black women in the movement for social justice. Juanita had asked about who's doing the work around human sex trafficking. Here's a name that you all need to know because she was the impetus for the bill that was signed into law by Governor Cuomo around sex trafficking. Her name is Reverend Dr. Q English. Many of you are familiar with her, but you don't know how painstakingly she crafted the bill. She worked with Senator Gillibrand and every notable politician in the state to ensure that this would not be something that would be tolerated in our state, and to ensure that when a child or any person is vulnerable to sex trafficking, they would have resources. So that's Reverend Q English, Reverend Dr. Q English. I say sort of the best for last, I say, because these sisters right here, who I'm about to speak about, they are true sister friends indeed. Nefertiti Edwards Jackson. She's so comical, but she's about her Black people. And she is a budding Black liberation theologian, but she's also a part of what she and her cousin call the church gangsters, because they're not afraid to go out on the street and seek justice. Finally, her cousin, my dear friend, Minister Tandra Burkett. She is the co-founder of the Harlem Fashion Week along with her daughter, Yvonne Junelle. And she's also an educator, but she is a powerful liberationist who seeks the justice of her people's cause. And these are just a few of the names. I could go on and on, but I wanted to talk about these. And I hope that you all caught most of them. I'm going to try to put them in the chat before I close down. Kenya has reached her vacation site. She might not have told you all, but I'm about to shout out her birthday, which is tomorrow. Let's give Kenya a hand. We pray that she lives through this night, that she may be able to bring in her vacation. Look, she's showing off. She is showing off, y'all. She's someplace where some of us want to be. And I'll find out where she is, and we'll tweet, we'll post it later. But look, I want you to have a wonderful time, Kenya. Um, Thank you so much for being my guest tonight. I so appreciate you, and I pray that you have a wonderful birthday and relaxation. Would you like to give us some parting words?
You know what? I would. I think that an idea that just came to my head is that if we can get these group of women together, because we need the support. We're doing the work, but we also need to be able to support
Mhm.
each other, and we can get us all together, and we can come out and do something like this together and spend some time just loving on each other and networking and talking. I think that's something that we could put together through this communication that we have, through this relationship that we're developing. It's been a lot. It's been a lot from the top of COVID. We've all been going through a lot. We've all been dealing with a lot. We should all give ourselves a break and love on ourselves a little bit, as women who are out here on the front lines and sometimes not getting the support that we feel we need.
Right.
But again, just take the time we need for ourselves. That could be a bubble bath. That could be a bottle of wine. That could be a good cry. That could be a phone call with your girlfriend, or with your mom or someone that you love. That could just be a walk in the park. Do what you need to do so that you replenish in the ways that you need to replenish, so you can continue to do the work, because it is not easy work. But as Dr. Jenkins said, if we're called, we are. I love Even if I don't know you, I love you, because that's what we're put here to do. We're put here to love each other. And it says, it's clear, love your neighbor as though you love yourself. We've got to love ourselves first so that we can then love each other. Thank you, Dr. Jenkins, for what you do. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for your platform. You are beautiful inside and out. And I am so grateful that you and I have connected. And I just look forward to how we will continue to develop as we do the work. Keep the
Awesome.
garden prayers. Keep them in your prayers.
Yes, you will.
Understand GoFundMe that it's shared 2,000 times, and we have maybe 6. The sharing. Don't feel like if you don't have it, it doesn't matter. The sharing is actually more powerful than the dollar.
Yeah,
You understand? It gets in the
absolutely.
right people. If you share it enough and it gets in the hands of the right people, then it will do what it needs to do. But again, I love you, Dr. Jenkins. I love your audience, and I thank you for allowing me a voice to be able to come on and speak to your platform.
Thank you so much. Enjoy yourself. We'll talk when you get back.
Yeah,
God bless
I'll talk
you.
while
You're
I'm
talking
here.
to me while you're
But
gone? Okay, okay.
bye
God
bye.
bless you. Thank you. Thank you. So, everyone, this has been wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I love an opportunity to shout out my sisters, whether I know them personally or close or not. I'm just so proud of the work that we continue to do as Black women. I want us to all remain encouraged. There's much work ahead of us, and let's do this together. If Denise Best is not on, I'm mentioning her name again because we just had a call to action by Miss Kenya Brown that all of these sisters who I've mentioned tonight should come together. And since you are an event planner, we will be willing to put the dollars in your pocket to organize something for early fall, say October perhaps, if all is well according to COVID. And I'm not making light of it because it's really bad throughout the rest of the country. Even as we learned today that Florida is on pace to surpass New York, and we were hit so very hard. But I want to thank our governor for doing a wonderful job managing COVID. The lives lost could have been much worse than they have been. And sadly, since Florida's numbers are going up in the tens of thousands, 10,000 nightly, they will probably surpass New York by end of the week, if not tomorrow. I want to tee up my conversation for next week. We are doing something a little different, but it is so relevant. I'm going to have on as my guest, my special guest, Mr. Eric Hamilton. He is the founder of the Facebook group Africa 2063. This group is for anybody who is of African descent or in the African diaspora who want to retire there, start a business there, help out there on the continent of Africa. I thought and I think that the work he and those who are in that group are doing is so spectacular. I thought I needed to have him on as a guest, and he will be my guest for the hour next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Please, you don't want to miss it because Africa, and I'm specifically talking about the Black led countries in Africa, they're offering incredible opportunities for Black people to come and make a return home, to build homes, to build a life, to retire, whatever you want. And so he's going to be on telling us what his aspirations is for this group, what they have planned, and how we can all be involved. Please, please join us next week. And just to tee up the following week, August 4th, my constant or frequent co-host or guest, Pastor Anthony Davis, will be returning for the hour with me. We're going to go back to faith and we're going to talk about some of the things that he and I have been grappling with as leaders, but also the Black church. And so you don't want to miss the next 2 weeks because I think they're going to be powerful. We're going to end out August with an emphasis on Black businesses. And so I will be inviting some Black business owners on. I want to make another plea for your support for the On Code Rapid Response Team that I am putting together through my family's organization, the Presley Family Institute. It will be comprised of Black and Latino males aged 18 to 24 who would like to be a part of the community's response to the external and internal violence that rings out in our community. Let me make this very clear. They will not be fighting crime, but they will be doing things like what Kenya has done. They will be providing comfort and reassurance to the community, to the families harmed by violence. We will be there to take back and protect our community on the ground. We will be posting the link to how you can commit to a donation because we're not going to send these young men out there without some money in their pocket. Do you realize that a lot of the crime that's happening in our community is because of poverty, because of a lack of employment, because of a lack of opportunities? How would we look sending our young people out there who do care about their community without something to put into their pockets? And so I am not ashamed to ask for the community to support the On Code Rapid Response Team because they're going to be doing what you and I are not doing. And so we will be sharing a little bit more about that and how you can support it through your donations on my Facebook page and perhaps on my YouTube page, but most definitely on Facebook. Well, that's it for Dr. Deborah Jenkins and the Black Talk platform for this week. I thank you all so much for tuning in. Please share with your family and friends because the sisters whose names I've mentioned tonight, they are people that we all should know or get to know because they're doing the work on the ground. And also share it and go and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, which is Black Talk Platform, so that we can bring more people into this knowledge about what makes a difference to Black people. And I'm willing to take your suggestions as to topics we should cover in the future. Until next week, God bless you all. Be safe and pray for everyone who has been affected by COVID and pray for yourselves. God bless you.